Hello, map friends, and welcome to the new form of map chats. The reason that I have decided to start pre-recording the interviews is not because I don't want to do lives anymore. I will absolutely be doing lives still. But I felt like I was having too many technical problems while I was trying to do the lives on Instagram. And the whole point of these interviews is that you guys get to see behind the curtain and see those people and hear what they have to say. And I just felt like the audio-visual stuff was really getting in the way of you getting to know the people that I'm interviewing. So I've decided to go for a recorded call. I usually do these privately through Zoom, and I'm going to be recording them and uploading them to YouTube now. I'm going to be creating a playlist with all of my previous ones on there as well, so that you can catch up on all the good stuff that that's been going on Eve's Worldbuilding. Before we start map chat number 14, there was a couple of things that I wanted to mention in my previous one, but the as you all know, the audio got cut. So watercolors. I've recently purchased these, which is the Koi palette from Sakura, which are the people who make the Pigma Micron pens. And honestly, it's really cute. It comes in this little box. It's got this little finger thingy that you can hold so you can look like an artiste. And to be honest, it was my interview with Shay. Talking with them really inspired me to try something new and get out of my comfort zone. And also pretty colours. So yes, I'm not sure exactly when I'll be debuting my colour maps, but that's something that's in the works. And then the other thing was I recently got this notebook from Paper Blanks, which is, it's a blank journal. It's lined, but I mean, look at it. It's just beautiful. It's got this beautiful hardcover, really nice quality paper. It's even got like some detailing around the edges, and it's got these little funky clasps. So I've been putting all of my kind of thoughts and feelings about world building in there, but you could use it for, you know, secrets, etc. Plans for world domination, you know, every Sunday's activities. But without further ado, I'm going to be starting map chat number 14. So today I'm going to be talking with Jared Blando, who some of you may know as the author of Fantasy Art and RPG Maps and Fantasy Mapmaker. Both books have been super helpful for me and also a lot of other people in the community. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. And yeah, let's add him into the conversation now. Hello.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hey, I can.
Perfect.
Nice.
How are you?
Pretty good. Is that light too much?
No, it looks all good to me. You're really
Okay.
nice and clear, and I can hear your audio really well as well. So
okay.
that's a big thumbs up from my end.
Yeah.
So thank you for agreeing to do the Zoom call with me. I know that we'd planned to do the live. I really wanted to make sure that the interview was going swimmingly rather than the last week. I had just terrible problems trying to get it to go live. And the whole point of these interviews is that we get to know the people behind the curtain of their maps. And I felt like the audio visual was getting in the way. So thank you so much for coming to speak to me. If you wouldn't mind kind of like doing a little bit of an introduction about yourself, like who are you? How long have you been doing cartography? How did you get into it?
Sure. I mean, so my name is Jared Blando. I live in Portland, Oregon. I think I've been in the industry since 2008 or something like that, 2007. Yeah, I mean, I'm basically known for my D&D maps, I guess, predominantly, although I do a lot of other stuff as well. You kind of have to when you're a freelancer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, It's been fun. It's been interesting. I've changed up a lot.
Yeah.
For so long. But I mean, thanks for having me. This is cool. Just kind of came out of nowhere, but
Well, no, I've been following you for quite some time, and obviously your books are hugely influential in our community. Like, I think most people have purchased at least one of them, and it's just a really great guide for people who are beginners and not really sure where to start on their map making journey. So yeah, they're just really great resources for people. But I've got some more questions for you about the books a bit later on. But how did you start doing cartography? Is this something that you've been doing kind of your whole life? Have you always been artistic?
Yeah, I mean, like I was always kind of artistic as a kid. I was never like a great artist, really. I was just like, leave me alone. I want to sit in a corner and draw my little soldiers. So everybody would just leave me alone, and that was the best way to do that.
You fit the artistic stereotype of like loner artist kid.
Yes, I guess so. I'm kind of an outsider kind of guy, I guess. I got a big mouth. People,
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, well, sometimes it gets you in trouble. But as for like cartography, I was like maps as a kid, but I never thought about like doing them professionally. I kind of fell into it when I graduated from college back in 2006. I had a few jobs here and there, basically doing card art or spot illustrations and stuff, but very minor stuff. And I just saw it was on the market, and I was looking for a niche. And I'm like, I like maps. I saw that whatever was on the market at that point, I was like, I can do that better.
Yeah.
And so basically just did I think 10 or 12 of my own pieces, just stuff that like different things, encounter maps, whatever. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And I just sent them, like at that point, you could just email art directors directly. And so I just made my website. I had a website since like 2005. That was like a big thing in our school. So yeah, I just emailed people, and I got some work off of that. And then I wound up going to Gen Con one year, like randomly. I was just like, oh, Gen Con's going on. I think I hopped a plane, and I got there on the last day on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Wizards was still doing art drops at that point. So I just dropped my portfolio there, and I was walking around for like an hour or two, and I came back and there was a note in my portfolio, and they were like, hey, we'd like to see you. And so I talked with John Chindetti and a couple of the other people that were working there at the time. So I got like some 4th edition work off of that. And that was kind of like, that was big. I did a lot of Pathfinder.
Like kudos to you for kind of putting yourself out there. I think that's a major obstacle for a lot of people, like actually having the balls to go out and say, like, here's my portfolio, look at it and tell me what you think.
I mean, you can't, yeah. A lot of people, I know a lot of people that were great painters. Like I'm a fair, in my opinion, like there are many, many, many people, including cartographers, that I think are fine illustrators. They're fucking fantastic. Excuse my language, but they're amazing.
It's okay. We're not censored here.
But like, I think it comes down to drive too. I was just determined, I worked my fair share of crappy jobs, and this is just what I wanted to do. And I was just going to come hell or high water. I was going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And, you're going to stumble and fail and whatever, and people are not going to like your stuff. But I knew at the core, I had some good stuff, some things that people liked, and it was marketable. And basically, I enjoyed doing it. So it just fit,
Yeah.
So.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really like nice kind of origin story, like a superhero or something, that you've kind of like found your way in different. And I'm super jealous of like the convention scene over in the US. Like I really like, now I live in Spain. I'm sure there are conventions here, but it's just few and far between. And now with like the pandemic and stuff, I'm really like craving going to that kind of stuff. Like I went back in the UK. But hopefully we'll be able to go back outside again soon. Do you kind of still go to the conventions and stuff now and do like a stand, or have you been like on any panels or anything?
So I was doing Gen Con. I did it for 10 years. I screwed up my application or whatever last year, and it actually worked out because of the pandemic. So the con got canceled anyway. But yeah, so I usually have an art table. I'm in Artist Alley in Gen Con. That's the one to go to. There are others, you know, like for more like the figurative fine artists and stuff, like the magic card artists, they go to like IlluxCon, and like they kind of do like a circuit. But if like I do a lot of like game board art and like some conceptual stuff plus maps, and like, you know, Gen Con's the place to go. I mean, it's like it's 100,000 people targeted within 3 days. Like you can't get any better than that.
Exposure.
Oh yeah, continuously. Like just talking to art directors. I mean, basically you talk to fans, you do signatures and shit, but like basically I would just go around, and I mean, it got to the point where art directors just come to me, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game, is just keeping your name, you know, in circulation and just keep working it. Now though, we have a convention in Portland called Rose City Comic Con, and my wife has been like nudging me to like not go to Gen Con because it's a pain in the ass. Like it's expensive to get there, be there. It's very it's a lot of run up, a lot of printmaking and a lot of cutting, you know, just like so much prep for it. And I make my money back, so that's not the problem and more, but like it's just a lot of like, it's a lot of stress too.
A lot of effort.
So yeah. So Rose City Comic Con, they got a small con here. It's getting bigger. It's right down the street. It's way cheaper. So yeah, we'll try that. And I think it's still on for this year. So this will be our first year doing it. And we'll see how it goes, you know?
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Like obviously trying to go to different places. Would you say that you kind of like knew there was a point that you were ready to go to a con? Like if somebody is a relative beginner, like when would you say they would be ready? Like do they need like a certain amount of following, or like a certain amount of maps or illustrations in their portfolio, etc.?
Well, it's trickier now because I don't know if the big companies do portfolio drops anymore. Not that the industry is that big. Wizards may have started doing it again, but generally now Gen Con's a juried show. So you send in your 3 pieces, and then basically the 3 artists or whoever's running, you know, the guest artists in the art show or art judges, they're going to judge it, see if you get in. So if you get in, then obviously you got something, you know what I mean? Like somebody's for other conventions, I just say do it. Go. You never ever know what's gonna happen. You don't know who you're gonna meet. You don't know what jobs you're gonna get. You just don't know, and who you're gonna rub shoulders with. So I would say, like, the biggest thing for young artists or up and coming artists, and even a lot of older artists, is like fear of like rejection. You should have no fear ever.
How do you do that? How do you have no fear?
You just do it. I mean, people, you're your own worst critic. You're your own worst enemy. There's a lot of people that, like, I do pieces sometimes, I'm like, it's all right. You know, like it's not my best, but people love it. It'll be like the piece that I like doing the least, people will like the most.
Yeah.
And that's like, because your perception is so much skewed, right? I mean, so you just go for it. I mean, what do you have to lose? Oh, somebody doesn't like your work. Gives a shit. Okay, next person. You know, there's 7 billion people on the planet.
Someone's gonna like it.
Yeah, they'll pay you for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's like probably the biggest difficulty for most people getting started is just that, you know, fear of, well, what if someone tells me they don't like it, or that I could do better, or whatever. Like, well, I guess that's the point, that you can do better. Constructive criticism is something to be kind of not necessarily looked for, but it can be super helpful, like in the long run, even if it stings a bit in the beginning.
Well, those things that it's like, my thing is there's always going to be somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody faster, quicker, younger, whatever. That applies to life. So if you're hung up on that, no, don't be. It's just a matter. It's about finding your niche and what you like to do, and basically finding someone who's going to pay you for your. You have a unique set of skills. Like your work. Your work's very nice. It's very clean. I actually really like it. It's great.
Thank you.
Find clients. You know what I mean? If you haven't done so already,
Yeah.
I'm sure you. And you know what to do, and then that you'll change with time as you start to kind of grow out of your style, and that's just the same thing. But for the people that are too afraid to take the first step, just do it. I mean, who cares? Who cares if somebody doesn't like your work? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because somebody will. Chances are somebody does anyway. So just do it. I guess.
Just do it. We'll get that on a t-shirt. But for cartography, not Nike.
Yeah, title above meme.
Yeah, definitely. So how would you say that your style has kind of developed over time? What things have influenced you? Have there been any like people in particular or other books, videos, etc. that you've used in order to develop your style?
For cartography, no. Like I kind of approached, what's interesting about me, and at least my cartography, is like I went to school for figurative illustration, and I love to draw. I love to draw the human figure and that kind of stuff. I'm not the best painter. I'm still learning. Like everybody, it is a process. Take my entire life basically, but I just approach it from like from like a figurative perspective. It's one of the reasons why my style changes so much. I get bored. I see people that like have done the same thing, like the same kind of cartography, like over and over and over again for 10 years. And I'm like, I get burnt out like every 6 months. I'm like, I can't, and I'll just change it up. I'll change it up from piece to piece. I'll try different things and different influences. Generally, like I like a lot of like old school figurative illustrators like Howard Pyle. There's a guy, Eastern European guy, Victor, what is it? Umbraz. He was really influential. Guys like Justin Sweet, Lady Butler, she's a very famous Victorian painter. So my stuff's like all over the place. I don't generally draw inspiration from other cartography. Sometimes, there's some stuff and it's usually like weird. It's like a really like, unless it's the Chronicles of Narnia guy, that painter, because he's actually a calligrapher by trade. And so he just like wound up doing these beautiful maps. And those maps, I'm just like, that's fantastic. Because he does but he does it, traditionally. And I have so much respect for him. Super clean, beautiful pen work. So I just respect like that kind of stuff. But I don't know, like books wise, like I'm a big Tolkien nerd. Like I'm a hardened Tolkienite. Like I don't like the movies Tolkienite. Like I'm a weirdo.
I can respect that.
I've gotten my fair share of arguments. I'm big into history, historical stuff. Most periods, like the Renaissance and stuff is really kind of my jam. Yes, I mean, I'm just all over the place. I don't know. I guess probably my art, really.
Yeah, well, I guess influences can come from anywhere. Like inspiration can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be like in a concrete form of a book or a person or whatever. Like you create your own inspiration. And I think by creating consistently, you are more susceptible to creating new things yourself. At least I find that if I go through a period where I haven't drawn for like a week for whatever reason, and I come back and I'm like, I don't know where I am, what day is it? But if I've done that every day, I'm kind of like, oh, actually, maybe I could try this. Or, oh, I did this yesterday and I thought, oh, I'm going to change that. And it kind of like snowballs in a way. So in terms of like your workspace, I can see that oh sorry. There was a little delay there. Your
Oh, it's okay.
workspace.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what's happening. Hello?
Is it not working?
Yeah, oh no, sorry, there was just a little delay there. But it seems to have sorted itself out now. Yeah, your workspace. So if you wouldn't mind kind of like just not necessarily showing us around, but talking us through how you have like a workflow, what things around you do you keep kind of to inspire you? Do you like displaying your own work, other people's work?
I mean, I can just show you my desk. My desk is relatively modest, I guess. For some people, or it's like really awesome. Mine's sort of like, so I just have like a dual screen, and that's my kind of creative wall.
Nice.
As you can tell, I like BattleTech. I have some of my stuff is up. Mostly because I used to live in South Carolina, and Chelsea's my wife, we used to drive up from South Carolina to Gen Con. So I had a lot of my pieces framed, and it was just, you just pile them in the car and you just drive up. So now we've lived in Portland for 7 years, and like shipping out glass and like framed pieces is like, it's possible. It's just a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So now I just like in my room, I have like people come in. I'm like, I'm not vain. We just needed things for the wall. Like, so there's like some of my pieces are hanging up, but mostly like we've been collecting other pieces as well, just like other stuff. We're both Trekkies, like big into Star Trek, so we get a lot of Star Trek prints and schematics of ships and nerds. But yeah, I mean, as for like my creative wall, it's just sort of like things that I grew up on, that I liked. Artists here and there. I mean, I find artists, when I go to conventions and stuff, I'll get their card, I'll pick up some of their postcards or some of their prints. I just have a very like eclectic, I don't know, amount of stuff. And again, my desk is pretty modest. I have an old monitor that I use as my second monitor, my chief monitor that I use all, for my Photoshop stuff. I usually watch something or listen to something on the other one. So it's not super elaborate. I still use an Intuos Pro that's wired. A lot of people like use the, they draw directly on the screen with the new Intuos, or whatever the new one is.
I'm not sure.
I haven't got that. Yeah, whatever that one is. Sometimes I work on my iPad. Like I have an iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil. If I'm doing like, I've kind of gotten into like digital inks because I love ink work, and digital inks, like the programs now are so powerful. It's like you wouldn't know that it's not digital. You know what I mean? Like it's like crazy. So there's a coffee shop down the street, and I'll just like meander over there and kind of work and drink. Typical artist shit. Pretty much.
Yeah. Like in terms of obviously you've got your digital drawing tablet and you've got the iPad. If someone was starting to do digital work for the first time, moving from traditional mediums, would you say that it was better to go for the iPad or to go for not necessarily your drawing tablet, but for a more like traditional style of drawing tablet?
I think it's just comfort level. I think it's just comfort level. Like my wife goaded me into getting an iPad because she loves, now I have an iPhone. Like I'm slowly turning into an Apple man.
Apple's got you.
Yeah. But I do highly respect, and I really like the Pencil and the iPad Pro. Like the programs are cheap. Like I think I use Procreate. It was like $10, and it's like insanely powerful.
Yeah.
There's ArtStation, which is essentially that was like $15, and it's super, super powerful. Plus, it's more organic for a lot of people because you're drawing directly on the screen. And the Apple Pencil is good. I mean, and it's a cheap buy-in. It's like $1,100, and in the grand scheme of things, that's not bad.
It's not a lot.
No, it's not for the power that you're getting. I mean, A lot of the other systems, like the Wacom system that you draw on, there's cables everywhere. That alone is like $2,500. Then you need a computer that can handle it. Then you need Photoshop. So it's like, it's way more expensive. I don't finish anything on my iPad Pro. I haven't done that yet. Generally, if I do preliminary work, or again, if I'm kind of experimenting with digital inks and just drawing, I'll do that. But I think it's definitely, like somebody like Misty B. I mean, she does all of her work, as you can tell, like digitally on her pad or whatever, and she's fantastic. So
yeah,
or they're fantastic. I think it's a woman. So I think it's just what's comfortable. I'm just used to the Intuos Pro, like the tablet, but it does, when you're looking at the screen and you're drawing down here, there is detachment, right? And that's like, for some people, that's like, it feels awkward. I've been doing it. I started with like old school, like I'm fucking old school. So I'm used to it now. I've been doing it. But I have to say that I tend to get better results with a more tactile, with probably Apple Pencil, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're just there, you know what I mean? And you're just kind of in it, and it feels better. Yeah. So I would say the technology is moving along so much, you might as well go with the iPad and the pencil, because tablets are moving that way anyway, Yeah. So
I think it's definitely the more portable option as well for people who maybe like are younger and maybe they want to take it to college, etc., that kind of stuff. And so obviously most of the stuff that you do is digital. Do you think that it's possible to be competitive in the cartography market, or even illustration in general, using traditional mediums when there's so many more options available now through digital art?
Mm-hmm.
Like that you can obviously digital like workflow means that you can produce stuff and correct stuff a lot more easily. And do you think that traditional mediums are kind of like falling behind in some way?
In the market, no, because a lot of the like when you look at a lot of the card art and like the spot illustrations and stuff, probably half of those illustrations are traditional, possibly more. There's like a core of artists that are just like, it has to be traditional. Like, they like it. It's comfortable for them. A lot of them actually have moved from digital back into traditional. And so I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it's the human condition, right? I mean, you want to have that style touch. It feels better. It feels better when you sketch with a pencil, right? It's just like, it's a bit different. For cartography, I think there's always going to be people that are going to do it traditionally, and they're going to do it pretty well, but they're probably going to be a relative minority, because it's just, if you're doing it commercially, like you like you said, it's so much quicker. Yeah, it's so much quicker. Like, unless you're getting like high ticket, big projects, high ticket, and you're kind of doing it from step by step with the art director, or they know exactly what they're getting, and you can do that. Like Francesca Baraldi, she's very famous now because she does a lot of work. Her work's very beautiful, lots of figurative elements and embellishments, and but she's kind of a loner, you know what I mean? Like, she's there's not many people like her. Yeah, just simple as that. So I think digital's going to and has taken the front seat for a long time. And especially with cartography, like, it's hard to not, when you use traditional means on cartography, it's difficult to not get muddied color, depending on what you're using. Like, when I do traditional stuff, I use gouache, which is a traditional illustration medium, and you can get really bright colors, still opaque, but you can get really bright colors, and you can also go back in and fix everything. But most people just use watercolors and ink, or, you know what I mean? And that's like, if you don't do it right, it looks like crap because it gets really, and it's difficult. It's impossible to correct, you know? So, I guess it's for people that are coming in, it's just do what you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable doing traditional and you can handle the workload and do it quickly, because you will develop a shorthand, you always do as you do it more, do it. I think there's always going to be a niche for that. And there's a lot of other people that like their work looks digital. You know what I mean? Like, and you want to, people like the human eye can tell a lot of things, and like some of my work looks digital, but I try to like not make it look digital. Like I use a lot of texture brushes, I make my own brushes. Like you want to make it like lived in, and that's attractive, makes it interesting. And so I would advise new people, it's like experiment, you know, beat your maps up, you know, like make them look, you know. Yeah. So give characters basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in terms of like things that you draw, do you have for cartography, is there any things on maps that you particularly don't like drawing? Things that you'll leave to the last minute, things that you'll procrastinate on, or is everything kind of equally interesting to you?
City maps. I hate drawing. I'm coming around to them finally, but like when I would do digital for city maps, I would shorthand them a lot of times. Like I have my own tips and tricks on how to like get roofs and all this stuff. But then you got like people coming out of the market and they draw like every building. And I'm like, I want to kill myself. Like you know, like it's not that kind of busy work isn't interesting to me. Like I like the happy accidents. I like to experiment with color and like shapes and you know, geometric patterns and that kind of stuff. I like introducing that into my work. And the busy work of just drawing roofs is like, ugh, I hate it. I hate it. Plus, like, and I'll be the first to say my line work isn't amazing. Like there are people that are far better than I am with, you know, just using their line work, and they have an eye for it. They're really good. I often, like, if I'll do it, I'll like draw this line work out and I'm like, oh my God, the lines are too thick. I got to thin them out now. And it's like, it becomes this whole thing, you know? So, and you know, what's funny? I get hired to do city maps all the time. And I'm like, I mean, I don't want to turn down work. And as I said, like my shorthand, I mean, it's taken years and years and years, but it's finally like getting there where I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's make it interesting. But yeah, city maps, not my favorite. Not normally.
Not normally. Fair enough. To be honest, I haven't really like delved into the whole dungeon/city map part of the community yet. It's something on my to-do list, but partly for the reason you just said, like for me at the moment, like world maps, they just fulfill me. So I don't really feel the need to draw thatching for hours on end. But maybe people feel that way about trees, etc. on the world maps. But well, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your books. Because when I asked on Instagram, everyone was like, the books. So I haven't kind of narrowed down specific questions because they were all pretty much in the same vein of what people wanted to know. So the books, obviously, I'm not sure exactly which one came first, but how did the books come to be? How did you think to yourself, I'm going to write a book about, well, 2 books about fantasy cartography and RPG art, and how did you make it happen?
So funny enough, I was at Gen Con and an art director, or actually she was, I think she was a chief editor. She had been coming to Gen Con for years. She was a big gaming nut, and she worked for FW Media. And she basically hit me up. FW Media has since been basically went under and was bought by Penguin Random House. So she no longer works there. But basically, she was like, you know, I really love cartography. I love your stuff. Maybe we can write a book. Like, have you ever thought about writing a book? So she just left me, you know, I talked to her at my table. And so after the con, I hit her up, talked, and I never written a book before, and so it was a lot of work. Like they sent out they had a whole way, like a big way of doing things, how to lay everything out, how to do this, how to do that. But basically it's on you. You have to lay it out. You have to storyboard the entire thing. Then you have to illustrate the entire thing. And then you have to write the entire thing. And I'd never written a manuscript before. So it was like, and then you have to the whole thing was like, well, my first thought was like, okay, well, most people, when they think of maps, they think of world maps, right? So that's where I'm going to start. So the first one was, how to draw RPG maps, and the crazy title that they gave it. So I had to approach it from the perspective of somebody who had never mapped, you know what I mean? And it's like way harder than most people think to write, to try to instruct people and not get them confused. And not only that, again, I'm a big history nut. So I wanted to kind of inject my, why is this happening? Why is this river go this way? Why would this fort be here? Why, so, and that's a big thing that a lot of people don't include when they map making. It's very pretty, but then you're like, well, how does this work? This doesn't, why would this be here? Why would this be here? And, there are specific rules, and rules that they are broken even in nature, but generally there are rules that things follow. And so, yeah, I mean, I took a year and a half, I think, from the start to finish. Maybe it was 2 years. And I think it came out in 2015. I think is when it shipped. And so it did well. It was pretty well received. And then the second one was well, I want to do another map. I want to do another book. And this one is well, what's the next logical step? Well, let's do cities, right? So that one was harder. The company at that time, they didn't tell any of their people, but they were having financial troubles. I had a lot of problems with the editing team. Beth had left, so my contact was different. And there was a lot of seesawing. I mean, I literally had to they cut 40% to 50% of what I wrote, and 40 to 50% of what I illustrated out of the final version.
Wow. And
it was nuts. And a lot of people, what's funny is a lot of people are like, oh, we want to see why didn't you do this? And I was like, it was in there. It was in there. Yeah. I mean, they wound up naming the book without my, they just did their own thing. And then what's funny is it was a shit show. And then, excuse my French, we made it happen. And a month before it came out, or 2 months before it came out, they filed bankruptcy. And I was everybody was what? And all the royalty checks and stuff were caught up in the politics. Okay. I had to get a lawyer and this and that, but regardless, they got bought by Penguin Random House. So they're much better about communication. They're a much larger company. And now we are in talks about a third book. So we're going to do basically interiors, dungeons, and because that's the other thing. Everybody's you did all this. Now we want the next one. I'm
give us more.
It's really hard work. But it's fun. It's very rewarding. It's nice getting emails from people and from teachers. They bring it in for their kids. I mean, that's the cool thing. And it's also kind of another step in being a freelancer, where it's you want lots of different revenue streams. You know what I mean? You want royalties. I get digital downloads for my Wizards work, and a lot of my private work. People come to my site, they buy my stuff. I get, X amount of dollars a month, varying, and per year on that, which is nice. I get my royalty stuff. I sell, prints and stuff through another person. It's you have to have it's very important to have your own revenue streams. And that's a big problem for a lot of people. They work really hard, but their art doesn't work for them. And that's what you need to do, to really make it, or you're going to, there's Patreon guys. I have a Patreon. It's small. It's not that big, but I've been doing it. I was the first mapper, one of the first mappers on Patreon. And there's people with 4,000 patrons. And I'm that's great, but you're cranking out 3 pieces a month. Yeah. I do a piece every month. I have a very small following, but I'm this is secondary. very much secondary to my professional work. I love my patrons. They're great. They're like hardened veterans now. And I like that. I'm like I've always been like an outsider, like an underdog guy. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't need to have some primary source of income. If I put my ass into it, I could compete. But I'm like, I'm 37. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm not.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So anyway, rants.
Well,
those are my rants.
No, but I think it's very viable because I think most people, if they are in this, game or in this community, that most people that I speak to want to do this at least part-time or full-time for the indefinite future. But it's so hard. People find it really difficult to get clients or to create passive streams of income, which are kind of like the lifeblood of artists, unless you're literally getting really high ticket commission work. Which kind of stream of income would you say would be the most important for somebody who's starting to think about moving to part-time or full-time freelancing, that you should put your energy into first to kind of build a foundation?
To build a foundation, obviously you got to get jobs. If you're serious about freelancing, you got to get out into the work community. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be had, especially because of things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Companies have so much more freedom than they used to. Well, when I got started, it didn't exist, so the industry was so much smaller. The pay was a lot less, and you were working. I was cranking out maps. I mean, just anything, and not even just maps, anything, spot illustrations, conceptual stuff, labels for winemakers, like any kind of job. And that's why you had to be all over the market. And it's different now, for sure, because there's so many smaller publishers that have much more money due to not having to be beholden to like the major publishers, right? Some guy that his project funds for $400,000, he's got a lot of money hanging around that he could spend on artists. So that's a little different, but I would focus on that first. Other thing would be like, I'm not big on third party guys. I'm not big on things like drive-through RPG and like that. I'm fortunate because when you do work for things like Wizards, they sort of advertise for you, right? The new book comes out, you're in the book. People say, oh, who's this Blando guy? And then, they look up Jared. I'm lucky that I have, I don't need to be branded because my name is so ridiculous that people just remember it.
It's catchy, not ridiculous.
Yeah. So I'm always leery of the third party guys because to me, they're taking 30 or 40% of your commission. Every time, a lot of people are on there, there's tons of people on there. So it is good advertising, but you have to be found. And if you're not big in the industry, chances are you're not going to be found. There's 15, 20, 30 people that are really popular, and then there's everybody else. And those companies, what they do is they're the middleman, right? And to me, I'm like, the middleman doesn't really need to exist anymore, in my opinion. Now, like I have my site through Squarespace. They're amazing. It's like $300 a year, which is a business expense. You get unlimited hosting. You can put whatever the hell you want on there. Get out there. You got to try to get some major work or some smaller work, but advertise, use social media, use Instagram, all this stuff, and direct them back to your site. You want to build a following, your following. If you can cut out the man, because all they do is, I'm here and they're coming to my site. I do nothing. They don't do anything for you other than that. That could be really big, but for most people, it's not. So, and even like a lot of people use the D&D one, DM's Guild. And that's another one where I'm like, okay, 50% of what you make. I'm like, so essentially you're making content and they're just vampiring it. Yeah. And to me, like, there are a lot of people that, and people in the industry that are like, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with DM's Guild. It's like, there's nothing wrong with DM's Guild. They do their thing. That's how they make their money. It's good for some people. For me, as a creator and an artist, you want to maintain as much control of both of your IP if you have one. So create your own work. That's another thing. And own it. So you own the copyright. And two, you want that money channeled at you. You don't want that money. You don't want to hand money to other people. Screw those people. Like, it's hard enough. And a lot of artists will say the same thing. You know, you gotta fight, and you gotta be tough about it. And a lot of people are going to give you guff about this and that. They're going to try to undercut you. You know, most people don't value art. They don't know what it's valued. You know, somebody will hit me up for a commission. Oh, I want this, and this. Okay, that's $2,500, or that's $4,200. And they go, oh. I was like, well, what is your budget? I was like, no, $350. I'm like, really?
Interesting.
So it's not, it's not their fault. It's just, we have a culture it's a throwaway culture. And if you're doing unique pieces, that's unique. Nobody can do that piece but you. That's invaluable. That's the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean? You have, especially if your work is traditional, never undersell yourself, ever. Somebody's out there that'll buy it. Chances are it's probably worth what you're charging. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Like, pricing is something that people ask me a lot about, and kind of like not really knowing where to start, because I think a lot of people do assume that at the beginning that you should just charge nothing, basically, because it's exposure, etc., and that's absolutely not true, because you can't eat exposure. Like, if you want to make a business out of it, you have to charge what you're worth. And yeah, it may be lower to start with, but don't set the bar really low, so that when you actually have a portfolio later on, that you've stuck yourself at the lower end of the anchor spectrum.
Right. Well, and it's also go to the source. Like, if you're like what I did, I was like, okay, I think I can make something out of this map thing. Right. So again, I scrapped my entire portfolio. If you get out of art school, first thing you should do, scrap your entire portfolio.
Burn it all.
It's probably garbage. So and there's people that, don't hang on to any of these pieces that you think are great. Most of the time they're garbage. It's student work, and art directors will know that right off the bat. So redo your portfolio and go to the source. Make a portfolio. You don't need to make 10, 12 pieces anymore. We don't really do rails and posts and stuff that we were taught back in the day when an art director's flipping through your portfolio. The presentation was a very big thing. The presentation now is digital for the most part. Have a nice website. It's very cheap. You can design it yourself. They look great. And, even if you only have 6 pieces, you email those art directors, right? Or the companies. I want to work for Pathfinder or Paizo. Okay, well, go to Paizo's website. Go, okay, this is their website. Drop them an email. Be like, hey, I'm a freelance illustrator. Look at, this is my portfolio. I was thinking, and that's what you do. You shotgun that across the entire market. You go to Kickstarters. That was another thing. You can go to Kickstarters. Oh, okay, this company looks kind of cool. Where are they? Go to their website, shotgun them, and just go to the source. And you'd be surprised. Like, the market, people are like, oh, the market's not that big. Okay, in comparison, like our market is not like video games, right? Yeah. It's like a freaking dollar. You got in-house artists doing all this shit. You don't know. That's not really a part of that. So a lot of these, like, they're essentially mom and pop businesses. And, some of them have more than 5 employees. Some of them have more, but regardless, they'll get back to you. And if they like your work, they'll tell you straight up, be like, okay, well, I think we have a place for you. We don't have anything now, but maybe in 6 months we'll hit you up. And that's it. You get your first piece, your first work. And the biggest thing is be on time. Don't flake. Biggest thing for art directors is like reliability. You could suck worse than the next guy, but if you're reliable, he will go back to you. Yeah. Just simple as that. And a lot of artists are known for being flaky. Don't do that. It's a difference between an amateur and a professional. You just got to be on time. You got to know how to talk to people a little bit. You can't be like, emo, weird, whatever. It's fine.
I have feelings, so many feelings.
Yeah. Just put your business hat on and you go to town and just, walk the walk. And it's just about building confidence. Once you get your first couple pieces down and you add them into your portfolio, and it's just snowballs. And I that's how I did it, and that's how a lot of people do it. Sometimes it takes a while, but I don't buy the whole exposure thing unless you're going to a con, where that's a targeted, it's a business expense. It can be expensive, but it's target marketing. You're talking directly to your consumer base, and art directors. That's what you want. Everything else, you sell prints and this and that, whatever, that's fine. It'll pay for your trip if you're good. But like generally you should always look to the future and always have things, you're kind of mapping out what I can do, how much time it's going to take. And, it's sort of like a tactical, you kind of have like a tactical mind about it. And, but it's not that difficult to learn. It's not really. There's people that are better at it than I am, so some words of wisdom, I guess.
Well, no, it covers my next question. That would be kind of like, what kind of tips would you give to beginners in terms of like getting your work out there, etc. But you've covered that really great. So you must have read my mind. Which kind of leads us on to kind of like my final question, which obviously you've mentioned that a third book is in the works. But for you, where do you see Jared Blando as a brand or as an artist? Where do you see yourself going? Is there any kind of big projects that you're working on that you can share with us, or any dream projects that you would really love to do, kind of like having a map in some kind of TV series or something?
I guess like I dislike branding in general. Like I'm a weirdo. Like people are like, it's all about the brand. And to me, a brand is like artists are people, and a brand is not. So, and a lot of times what happens is when you brand up, you get pigeonholed, right? I mean, that's all they look at. Oh, I do these marvelous whatever maps, and okay, well that's all they're going to come at you for. That's all it's like working for a company. The harder you work, the more they're going to work you. And to me, it's about I don't know, I guess I am just a creative guy. Like I love doing arts and drawing and painting and stuff, but like I like to just create, and I'm very fulfilled just creating, whether it's writing. I like to write, like I like to paint miniatures and play war games because I'm one of those nerds. And I like to write. I've written 2 of my own war games. I've written an RPG. I haven't published any of this, but that would be where I'd like to go. It's just like, maybe I kind of put a backseat on the art. I got my residual income and I go into a bit of my self-publishing stuff. And, the third book's going to come out. I think that's been in high demand. I'd like to write a novel, a Star Trek novel. That'd be cool. That's kind of a life goal of mine. So I'm just like, I don't know. I just want to live my life. Like my wife and I would love to travel. So we go hiking, we go camping, we go to Europe, we've gone to India. Like, so to me, it's just like, I don't know. You're not going to be here forever. Of course you want to be remembered. Everybody wants a legacy. We don't have kids or any of that crap. So like, which is fine by me. So it's just like whatever makes you happy, and finding out what makes you happy. I think that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people, and some people are just absolutely overjoyed, like just slaving, working hard over their desk till the day they die. And I'm just like not one of those people, because I put in my time. I probably cranked out more than 1,000 pieces at least. And you just get burnt out. You can't, at least for me personally, I can't maintain that kind of tempo. The passion starts to dim because you're just doing the same thing. You got to find other outlets. And I mean, I guess like big projects wise, I'm working on a big Warhammer map now. Warhammer Fantasy for the Empire. So I like that. That's kind of one of my favorite settings. So I'm working on that. That's freaking huge. It's like 51 inches across. It's massive.
It's a beast.
4 months. It's ridiculous. And I actually drew a lot of inspiration from the illustrator who did the I can't remember his name right now, the Chronicles of Narnia maps, because he really inspires me a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm like wave man. Like I just kind of like I've had like my own problems with like inspiration and stuff. Like when you're in the industry for that long, and again, people just come at you for like, oh, I want this map, I want this, I want this. This like you just get tired of it. You know what I mean? Like you want to do other stuff. And I would encourage other people to don't just do. If you love map making and that's why you're getting into it, then by all means do that, but explore that as well. You know, change up your style, do weird shit, things that you never would, because at the end of the day, you'll learn from it. If you're getting into it because you just want to make money and whatever, you're probably in the wrong industry anyway. But
yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah, I mean, there are people that make money, but I mean, there are people that thrive. I shouldn't even say that. There are people that make money, but it's hard work. That's all I'm gonna say. So yeah, I'm just kind of all over the place.
No, I think it is really important to kind of like talk about having a balance like that. At the end of the day, like this is a job, it is work. Yes, you can absolutely enjoy what you do and really gain a lot of kind of like life force from doing that stuff, but also life does go on outside of kind of building your business and your following and getting back to those emails that people have like sent you all the time because the planet never sleeps. That like it's really great that you kind of go with your wife to do traveling and that kind of stuff, that people can sometimes get kind of obsessed with this idea that you've got to just keep churning stuff out because the algorithm
social has a big like it has single-handedly changed the industry. It's changed a lot. It's changed people, I think, in some ways, and I despise social media. I think it's very useful for a lot of people, but it's also a lot of people rely on it, like not only financially but like mentally, and it's like the breadcrumbs of like approval. It's like, oh, every like is like, oh my God, like I feel so much better. But like that literally is like a little flash in the pan. And when people like don't have that, they crash and burn.
Yeah.
Because it's like a drug, but I mean, it's basically, yeah, I guess so. It can be addictive, and it's also like it controls people's like, especially for artists, they want that approval. A lot of artists want that kind of like affirmation, right? And the whole algorithm is built around that. And I just refuse to I'll do social media to like advertise, to get people to know that I have these pieces on my site and whatever. But like, I'm just like the least amount of posts, the better. Like live your life. Living your life digitally is not living. Nobody cares. Those are not your real friends. Trust me. Nobody gives a shit. So take the time out. Excuse me. Take the time out and, go for a walk, go hiking, live, travel, go, okay, this looks really cool. These castles look really cool. Go to Germany, visit those castles, walk where those people walked. That's what's inspiring. You're actually, because you'll never know like what pops into your head after you go on an epic adventure of your own. So many people that's all they do. They just crank out tons and tons of work. And, and I'm like, that's all fine and good. But I'm telling you right now, like I've been doing this a long time. You're not going to sustain that. It's not going to happen. Just the human condition is going to intervene. Like you're going to break down.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is like, you can't build your career. I don't think, I mean, that's just my opinion, but there's people that would, not agree with me on that, but Don't be a brand. You're a person. Corporations are brands. Leave it to them.
Yeah,
you know
leave
what
it
I mean?
to them.
So
No, I think that it is kind of like a tricky thing, because now we are told that you're kind of like expected to be present on social media, and that if you don't have X amount of followers or whatever, that you're considered like an amateur or whatever. But that's absolutely not the case, because there's so many great artists who are obviously making a living part or full time, kind of without thousands and thousands of people following them. And you seem to have like creative freedom over your own work. Like you seem to have like an idea in yourself as to what your art means to you and how you want to go about it. And I think it is very easy for people from the outside, if you're consistently on social media, that they kind of end up, you draw what they want rather than what you want.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why Patreon is so important. Patreon, like I was getting sick of just being an art director's hand. You know, you feel like, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's like after a while, you just feel like it's not really you. You know what I mean? Like you're doing a piece that you don't really have any, like a professional just works. You don't have any like strong, emotional attachment to most of your work. That's the difference between an amateur and a professional. Is like you're a mercenary. I mean, if you think of it that way, you're a sellsword. They pay you, you have a skill, you use the skill, you get paid. That's it. That becomes very trying for, after a while, for a lot of people. And for me personally, I think that's why I started my Patreon. Not only I get a little bit of money, I get like $300 a map. I mean, the amount of work that goes into these maps, it's not even funny, but it's worth far more than that. But at the end of the day, I'm creating my own IP. It's my own work. It's my own copyright. And I package it and I can resell it and other people can use it. And that is invaluable. You want to control. Yeah. I mean, again, that's why something like the DMs Guild, when you post on there, you're using their IP. That's not really your work.
Yeah.
That's their work. You're doing all the footwork for them. Now, I got nothing against Wizards of the Coast. I mean, they sign my checks. They're great. And to be honest, they're great art directors. They're very creative and they let me do what I like to do, which is what an art director should. They should trust you. But at the end of the day, like you're your own person and you should have a lot of creative freedom and IP freedom over your own work. It's very important. And this has been going on since the beginning of illustration, is the control of your own work, and who owns it, who buys it, and who you can sell it to, and all that stuff. So never, I don't know. I think there's a movement for that. I think that's why Patreon's exploded too. It's just a nice thing, like when you own your own body of work. You use companies to climb the ladder and to get noticed and to pay your bills and stuff. And then when you're big enough and people trust you enough, you create your own stuff and sell it, and there's entire small companies that have, gone up. I mean, there's people that on Patreon that make $30,000 a month. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's some serious for an artist anyway. So yeah, I mean, the whole like social media stuff, I hate influencers. I know hate's a strong word, but it's just like, it's so like, they're just not real. They're just not real. Like don't let people tell you who you are ever. Screw those people. It's your life. It's your point of view. You only have one point of view. Why the hell are you letting them? They're getting paid for their own, they're their own form of mercenary doing their own thing. So people just need to be like, a lot of artists, I see a lot of burgeoning artists at shows and stuff, and they'll come up to me and they'll ask us questions and this. And I'm like, just work hard, do your own thing. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not good enough. I mean, if you saw my work coming out of school, it's fucking garbage. I mean, it wasn't very good. I think I graduated with 43 illustrators and I'm one of 2 or 3 working in the market. And it was just because I was a terrible painter. I wasn't very good, but it was just drive. You just have to have the drive. You got to work your ass off. And there's going to be a lot of naysayers that say that you can't do that, that you shouldn't do that. You can't. Screw all those people. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Well, I think that's pretty much all of the questions that I had for you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really great talking to you and meeting you in person online. And I think that the people that are watching this interview will get a lot from it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was fantastic.